Hello dear chess friends, and welcome to our new video. In that video I will present domination SMYSLOV shown in his game against Arnold DENKER. That's a match of nations, Soviet Union versus United States, held in Moscow 1946. Well, game is very important, very instructive to understand the concept of playing of controlling light squares in opponent camp and weak squares, and to play against opponent's hanging pawn center. You'll see how two pawns black had on central files were just perfectly blocked and became object for white's attack. Game was started with e4 and black played c5. Looks like black is ready to play sharp Sicilian defense, but SMYSLOV denies that by playing patiently knight c3. So position is that opening is known as so-called closed Sicilian, because white wants to organize patient finishing development with chances to attack on the king side. Looks like white is ready to go for some reversed king Indian setup after knight f3 or with or without f4, or maybe in more common way to play knight to e2. Black here played knight d4, and that is, I think, not so good with white knight still on g1, because white, it is better to wait for move something like knight ge2 and then to play knight d4, then white won't be able to capture. But after knight d4, white has interesting solution, knight ce2, offering pawn. Let's see why. After knight e2, after black takes knight e2, knight takes bishop d2, bishop b2, rook b1. If black plays this, that would be fatal for black, of course, because black will lose material. And if bishop goes back, white will just take that pawn c5 and will have excellent play. That's much better for white. He has 4 activated pieces against only 1 activated piece for black side. Black has a problem with pressure on that diagonal a3 f8, and black has problem with pressure on that b file on square b7. Also, that bishop can be joined to attack. Black decided, of course, not to take, and he played d6, but now, of course, c3, forcing black to capture. If black takes, of course, some square would be gained by white, and that is okay for black, but we must say that white is still better here, because he has control of the center and some space advantage. After c3, knight c6, we can see that black did bad job. Knight d4, losing time. White knight wasted time, but knight is not on same place, so white can go for d4 immediately. White had that recapturing on mind when he was playing his 7th move, a move knight ce2. The point is now white is ready to put pressure on d file on black pawn d6. So why is that dangerous for black? Evidently, you know about so-called dragon Sicilian, where black has that pawns on d6 and g6. You also know about Scheveningen Sicilian, where black has pawns on d6 and d6. In dragon, black bishop belongs on g7. It is placed here now. But in Scheveningen, after d6 and d6 moves, bishop belongs on e7. Now we can see black has both d6, e6 and g6. So that means practically black bishop is extremely needed on both locations, on g7 to cover that squares, weak squares f6 and h6, and it is also needed on e7 to protect that weak pawn on d6. And that's why d6, e6 and g6 setup is bad if white has open d file. Simply pawn d6 is in problem now. Knight d4, bishop d4, and black played e5. If black plays knight f6, that looks better option for black, but that is still better for white. White can go for this. He wants to use dangerous bishop on g2, better majority. 3 versus 2 is better than 4 against 3. There is pin. He will white would be able very soon to exchange dark square bishop. Black in some moment must move that knight from f6, and that was pretty better for white, but okay. Black decided to play e5, and I think that is lesser evil for black to play still knight f6. e5 makes big hole on d5 and makes pawn e5 extremely weak. I will just remind you, black bishop is on wrong spot on g7. Now it is closed. Knight e7, knight does not belong there. Black hopes he will play d5, but after that move and castling we see that black cannot play at all d5. Here I would maybe suggest move c4 with idea to go for knight c3, but okay, white wanted firstly to finish development. Bishop e6, queen d2, and d5 is bad because white has moved bishop c5. If black captures, piece is gone, knight e7 is lost. If black doesn't capture, white will capture on e7 and take on d5 will extra pawn. That is bad for black, and after queen c7 we can see that white has idea to play c4, and he played that rook. Of course that rook, because pawn on a2 needs protection, f5. I would suggest here rather b5, but problem for black is white has a4. Now white a4 pawn is used to crush black b pawn, and after eliminating black pawn from b5 I would be able to play c4 and knight c3 again. If black plays a6, okay, pawn on b5 remains weak and black will have problems with it. That would be still lesser evil, I think, than f5, but after f5 black wanted, he hoped to eliminate pawn e4 somehow, and after that to play d5. White's reaction is perfect, he just plays c4, neglecting any capture. So after this, black will take, of course, probably with pawn, yes, with pawn, and he would be able to play d5 with reaching a dangerous pawn armada in center that will bring him some initiative. White played c4. Idea is simple. Knight c3 to control square d5. After taking, of course, knight c3. Black must not take, because after that knight e4 and white threats b3, which cannot be prevented. Black is in ruins, of course. After knight f5, white just takes with knight, allowing black to take that pawn. And we can see it may look black did good job because he has bishop pair. Alas, bishop pair is here main defect for black because bishop g7 isn't working. That pawn isn't working at all. He tried with h6 to prevent that move. Knight there, but white just retreats to d file, attacking pawn on d6. Capturing with queen is not good because there is knight d6 and black is in problem. White can also take even with a rook, no problem. Taking with bishop would lead to collapse because after rook a1, black cannot prevent b3 with winning material. So rook fd8 was played, and finally rook ac1, rook c8, b3, b6. I don't know why that move. Maybe black was afraid of c5. Of course, that is illusion. But I don't know. Maybe black wanted just prophylactically to remove that pawn from that diagonal to avoid attack from bishop on g2. But after b6, knight c3. Of course, that two squares are under white control and black is just hopeless. After queen e7, we can see key move in that game. That is move bishop d5. Of course, if opponent has two bishops and if one bishop is good, most probably another one would be bad. Black bishop e6 perfectly fits with pawns d6, e5, and bishop g6, g7 is so restricted by his own pawns. After eliminating light square bishop, white will dominate on squares e4 and d5. Probably rook will go to d5 and knight to e4 with direct attack on d6, and that pawn will fall soon without any doubt. After bishop d5, I will remind you about very important principles. If you find such key squares like in that position e4 and d5 are, eliminate all opponent pieces controlling key squares. Doesn't matter if you will exchange your piece controlling that squares for his piece. That is very important. After eliminating black bishop on e6, white will firmly establish blockade here and dominate. As you can see, why not rook d5? There is nothing wrong, but okay. And now knight e4. Black must switch to defending that pawn. White improves. There is threat in some moment of playing b4 and c5, and also of tripling. Rook d3. Idea is to triple, but black decided to give away that pawn. If he tries something else like queen e6, there is this, and after protecting, there is c5. Black is lost because after b takes, you can see pin on d file will end the game. White is exchange up and easily wins. So black decided to sack that pawn, but that is just for nothing, because there is nothing on f file black can achieve. White precisely played this, perfectly calculated that rook f2 will give nothing to black. Black must go for this. Okay, he's 2 pawns down. Now closing the check, taking, and of course rook d8. Black does not even one single check. He must play rook g7 and now game is over. Black is without check, he must play g5 and white just chases for black king. Queen h6, another pawn is taken. Still black is out of any check. And now prophylaxis. Rook f1 is threatening. Again there is no check, just see how SMYSLOV perfectly observed the position. And after that black just play some more moves, few more moves by inertia. Here rook f2, preventing on some check on e2, and after that moves, as you can see, black decided to resign. There is no defend for black, he is in Zugzwang, and he will soon lose some material. White can win even after trading queens. Black is just lost. I think there is no defend against maneuver something like this with rook e8, for instance. 2 extra pawns. I just want once again to pay attention of black careless play. He took on d4 opening d file, that start of his problems. That just generated his problems in the middle game. Then f5, he stayed with holes on e4 and d5. And of course after exchanging that light square bishop with bishop d5, black is absolutely hopeless. There is no chance for him to show any resistance. There is zero chance for black to organize anything, and white convincingly just wins the game by setting rooks together with queen also on d file, and knight on e4, pawn d6 will fall. I hope you could enjoy that performance. I hope you could enjoy that game, and I hope you learned thing or two things. See you soon with new examples, and once again thanks to you supporting our channel. See you soon, and bye bye.